Hello YouTube, and today I'd like to discuss on this July 3rd what it means to be an American. July 4th is tomorrow, and I've got a lot of foreign students that I teach online, and I find it funny that this whole idea of Americana is something hard for many of them to grasp or to define. Many of them who have never been to the States or really lived in the States get their information from TV, movies, that sort of thing, right? So, excuse me, I'm always clearing my throat here because I'm allergic to Oklahoma. It's that simple. I'm truly allergic to this place. I should be in Northern Europe or someplace like that. Anyhow, when it comes down to what it means to be an American, we have people who are confused by what they see on TV, on movies. But the ones who move here, live here, they always notice things. They notice this, and I'm talking about recent history. They notice the angst with Americans. They notice the stress, anxiety. They notice the terrible work-life balance. They notice all these institutions in place to milk every cent from you. Everything is for sale, everything is transactional, and everything is exploitative. So you might say, and I'm not trying to get into economics necessarily right now with this discussion. I'm really just mentioning that the original American dream of us having a large middle class of mostly self-driven merchants enabled by their state, by the republic, by their government, to have competition, free will. That's not really here. We have this grotesque crony capitalism between different entities and government and global entities. So we, the people, are just smashed and destroyed. So, anyway, without getting too much into all that, I would have to say that we, the people, aren't really Americans anymore. We put up with way too much. Our founding fathers, and I'm going back to the 18th century, would have been fighting a long time ago, truthfully. They would be revolting in the streets. Now, we have, going back further, we really don't have a true social contract anymore. You know, Americans tend to feel like we're cattle at this point in time. And that's pretty much what we are. We're cash cows for the ultra rich. So, people don't like to talk about the original intent of this country. The original intent, the original founders, it was for white male landowners. Okay? The original melting pot was not a melting pot of all cultures. It was a melting pot of Europeans. And even some Europeans had a hard time getting in. Now, before some of you guys of lower IQ start screaming racism and misogyny and all that other good stuff, we have to ask, you have to play a little devil's advocate and say, were there any benefits to this? Certainly, if you wanted to have a ethnic quota, then that would mean people of the same overall cultural backgrounds, linguistic backgrounds. The ideas, a lot of people in that time, Europeans at that time, that fought for what is now Western civilization, or it was Western civilization, they understood that you had to have a certain value system and cultural identity and state of mind to really appreciate what freedom was, what liberty was. And they believed that people of other races, hence other cultures, sorry, I'm kind of fumbling on my words here. I'm having some asthma issues in this place. I grew up in the state of Wyoming, totally different environment. So, side note, that's something that else that most Europeans I know don't understand is the vastness of the American continent. I grew up 2,000 kilometers away in a whole different environment, a whole different world than here. So, anyhow, we have to acknowledge that there are some advantages to this. Unified by cultural identity based on ethnicity, land ownership was a requirement for voting. I see some validity in this, where you have skin in the game when it comes to who your leaders are going to be. You have something to lose. Your business, your home, your land, that's important as well. Having land ownership. Now, the gender thing really pisses off a lot of women. But I have to ask the women out there, can you honestly say that women vote just as rationally and logically as most men? Now, that's kind of a loaded, offensive question. I'm not trying to be too broad and generalized here, of course, as always. I like that expression. I'm looking at some fish down here. Check this out. I like looking at the fish. I wonder what kind of fish we got in here. Perch, maybe? Probably some smallmouth bass. Yeah. So, I would have to say that I think, and of course there are idiotic white males voting and what have you as well, just as anybody else. But when we have to ask this question, do women really vote strictly on the logical positions of the candidates? Well, I remember having a teacher. Now, this is personal experience, anecdotal. And this is back in the 80s. I can remember her talking about how she voted for John F. Kennedy back in the day. Not because she knew anything about his policies, but because she thought he was better looking. Okay, then. So we can, now, obviously that's not everybody. There's people who are into policies. I'm not trying to deny women the right to vote or anything like that. I'm not that extreme, even though this conversation might seem that way. I'm just entertaining ideas, playing a little devil's advocate with this as well, and trying to see maybe the intent of the people who created these systems. So, anyway, I am 8 minutes in and I'm kind of off my subject a little bit. So, what I'm trying to say is, Americans are not really Americans anymore. Now, we have to seriously consider, if you are of non-European ethnicity or ancestry, whether you were forced to be here, whether you existed as a part of a tribal system that was defeated or bought out. You know, hey, this whole notion that everybody just stole the land, that's nonsense. A lot of this was purchased. So, for example, we saw a bunch of riots in LA over stolen land. Horseshit. Treaty of Felipe, 1868. We purchased that land for about $15 million. We the people did. It was bought and paid for. So, some of these people are just emotional or irrational, and they don't even know what the whole point of being an American is. How many of them have read? How many have read the Constitution? Many of them have not. How many have ever read the different letters, different articles by our founders? I've had to do it years ago. I would say, looking at the modern age. Now, by the way, I'm not saying that all people who are white landowners make the best voting class and that others do not. There are plenty of other people who have been here for generations as proud Americans, who understand its principles, who have realized that all cultures have positives and negatives about their history, good and bad. Okay. So it's not strictly a racial or gender-based system. In fact, many people like to argue that we've kind of evolved past that. But then again, it could also be said that we've proved some of these earlier founders correct. Look at the strife we have, the division. We fragmented on these melting pot lines, so to speak, as a culture. And I can't help but think that maybe there's something missing here in this whole thing. You know, this notion of not really understanding what we're supposed to be as Americans. A representative democracy, founded in the idea of liberty. But most Americans just seem so disconnected. So far from it. Just nonchalant about it. I just think the republic's kind of dying out. You know, people can wave American flags and set off fireworks, and how many of them really think about what it means to be an American? It's funny because I have some students, older students, who came to the United States, and they said we remind them of Britain, but we're like an older version of Britain. I thought that was kind of an interesting point. We always think of ourselves as new, the new world. We're Americans in the new world with a new way of thinking. But in reality, we were thinking, in many ways, to this day, we carried over something of that 18th century British way of doing things, that old Western European style. Some of those values are still very much entrenched in American thinking. You know? I think we have to ask those questions. I think, in essence, to be an American means we are a citizen and not a subject. We're not subject to anybody else or a governmental power. That the social contract must involve our social liberties, our personal liberties, our economic liberties. As long as we don't hurt nobody else, infringe on their rights, their natural rights, then we are to be left alone. We just don't want to be fucked with. We're a people that carved out the wilderness, made our way, adapted to cultures. Some were here, some were brought here, and we don't want to be fucked with. We don't want to be messed with. I think it's a very simple thing. I do think other people can understand this, regardless of what their ethnic background is, their history is. That being said, those values are always steadily drowned out by the wackos who scream, who are the useful idiots of political ideologies that are really foreign to the American experience. I can remember years ago, and maybe I should do a video on this, there was a scathing discussion about American exceptionalism by Vladimir Putin, of all people, all right, criticizing the notion of American exceptionalism. And Barack Obama, when pressed on this, had really no answer either. He was just as dismally lost and clueless about it, where he basically said, oh, I believe in American exceptionalism the way the Greeks believe in Greek exceptionalism and all that other stupid shit. So neither one of those commies understood shit about what it means when we're talking about American exceptionalism. American exceptionalism is less about a place, it's more like a set of ideas. So I'm going to kind of leave you with this thought here. American exceptionalism is really a sense of identity where you say, I am a free person. This area I'm at is free to become who I want, to protect myself the way I want, to provide a living for myself and my family, to worship whatever God I want or not, to not infringe on others' rights. So it doesn't matter if it's here in the United States. If you have a 10 square mile area that holds all these values true, that is free in that sense of the word, in that style, you have a form of exceptionalism that would be American exceptionalism. Now, people could say, oh, Well, these ideas are not unique to America. There's other areas that are more free in some ways, yes. That's technically true. But the reality is, the rest of the world can claim there's nothing unique about this, but the world did not do these things until the United States of America showed up on the scene. This little experiment, rooted in European ideas and philosophy and governmental systems, took root here on this continent and became something unique and uniquely American. So, with that being said, I don't think I'm going to waste my time with fireworks this year. Not really in the spirit of it, to tell you the truth. I think I'd really contemplate what it means to be an American. It's very strange now when you have people like me who are American who are clinging to philosophies and ancestral religious ideas. That definitely changes things. So, gives you a different perspective on it.